Tonight, we spoke about a question that was actually posed. What's our perspective on astrology and details within that, which we morphed into a discussion on Harry Potter. And is that yes or no appropriate for our children and why? And from there, we got into our subject at hand, Ethics of Fathers, chapter 6. And as always, found in it so many things that are so relevant for our lives. Thank you for joining.
Please subscribe and share.
So let us start with Becca's question. If I understood your question, Becca, because it was long and sometimes in all the words I get lost. I think what you were saying was, do we believe in astrology? That was your bottom line question?
To what extent?
Do we believe
in parameter?
Okay. That's what I thought the question was. All right, good. So the answer is, if astrology means the horoscopes written in a newspaper, no. I mean, that's, oh wait, just wait 1 second. Sorry. I'm giving a class now. Bye, Beryl. No. Okay. So if that means like horoscopes written in a newspaper, no, obviously that's garbage. Obviously some writer is turning them out and it's meaningless. So we're not talking about a book you're going to pick up for a magazine or a newspaper. We don't mean that. We mean literally real deal astrological power. So the answer is we do believe in that if it's real. Now there's neutral and there's evil in terms of it, meaning it is forbidden to ask and seek counsel through astrology. Let me go back a step. The whole concept of the stars and the various, if you call them the zodiacs or the names, originally pre the Great Flood, every month the stars reconfigured themselves in a certain shape. And it was very clear every month, this is the girl, this is the scales, it was exactly, that was the energy of that month. And you saw it literally in the stars, literally reconfigured. By the Great Flood, everything got like out of whack. And that also became, so to speak, out of whack. And therefore, since then, we don't see it. But is there a power in what in Hebrew we call the mazolos, which you'd call this astrological power? And the answer is yes. Jews are not ruled by the stars. It says very clearly that Abraham, before his name was Abraham, when his name was Abram, and his wife, instead of being Sarah, was Sarai, God promised them they would have a child. And they had seen in the stars that they were not destined to have a child. And God said, I'm lifting you up past the stars, meaning stars are how the world is ruled, but Jews are beyond the stars. And therefore, for a Jew, the stars have no power. Again, the stars mean the whole astrological energy has no power. That's the power of nature. That's the power of world. A Jew is higher than world and therefore higher than the powers. So that's like, again, the question has a few parts when you have to like think of it. So A, is there such a power, real deal? Yeah, there is. Not that you're going to probably too easily find it, because I don't know how easily you'll actually find someone today who knows how to understand those powers. But if someone truly knew, yes, there is a power. And that power is the power within nature. Another term for it in Hebrew is called the ma'aracha, the natural order. So Jews, by definition, are beyond nature, are beyond the stars, are beyond the astrological power, beyond the natural power. So it has no relevance to us. And we're absolutely forbidden to seek it. We're absolutely forbidden to seek that information. And if we did for some reason have that information, it would be irrelevant because we're beyond it. I know, I don't remember the details, but there was a situation recently, I'm talking about, I think this was in the 80s, that's what I'm calling recent. And there's some like worldwide network of people that truly have a knowledge in astrology. And they had all seen in the stars some great disaster on a certain date. And they saw it. All of them saw it. It was very clearly, however they see it, I have no clue, and I'm not supposed to know. It's not my world. But they saw this great disaster. And they were all waiting and watching for this great disaster they knew that was going to unleash on planet Earth on that day. And the day came and went and nothing happened. And they're like, this is really weird. We see it. We all see it. It's so clear. So they started doing research. They're like, something must have happened on that date. I mean, we all saw this horrible disaster. And they researched and researched. And the only thing they came up with was that the Lubavitcher Rebbe, I mean, they weren't Jews. They didn't know who the Lubavitcher Rebbe was. Some rabbi in New York had made that a day of worldwide fasting and penitence and prayer and charity for whatever reason he gave. And they understood that that somehow changed, averted what they saw. And one of their representatives went to a Chabad house to understand who this person is who can change the stars. And that's how we heard about the story. But it's actually a good story to bring out the point. Yes, there are things, but as Jews, we ride above it and we change it. And if we know it, we only know it to serve more God and therefore get beyond it. So for a Noahide, since this is a class for Noahides, how would that play out in your world? So I believe how it will play out in your world is that just like a Jew is not allowed to seek out knowledge through astrology, again, if you actually had the ability to speak to someone who was a real astrologer, I believe a Noachide would also not be allowed to seek out such knowledge. Generally, we view any knowledge coming from any source besides God as coming from a place of evil. So again, within astrology, there are two dimensions here. One dimension is just the stars are sort of expressing what's happening in the world. I don't know if that's considered evil. I don't think it's considered evil because it's just like, so to speak, the facts, the news report of what's going to be as the stars are, not that the stars create this, the stars have no independent power, of course. They're a tool of God, and this is something God put in the program. So I don't think the actual stars and what we understand from the stars is evil, but seeking the knowledge that way, going to people who practice it, that already gets into shady territory. And therefore, that would be something we should not do. It's very clearly biblical, any form of magic, witchcraft, we call it all black magic. We call it all evil, meaning, of course, in our days where Harry Potter style novels are all the vogue because somebody made a lot of money off that one. So it's in the world we're inundated with fantasy. It's cool, it's funny, it's cool, it's slick, it's good. That's not at all how it's viewed in Torah, as it's very clear. These are all biblical prohibitions. So does magic exist? Absolutely. Do the people that come to shows and our magicians have those powers? I highly doubt. Just like I don't think by reading a horoscope, you're going to get into any astrological issues. I don't think, it's just garbage. But there is a true astrological power. So similarly, I don't think you're going to find someone that's really tapping into real powers of magic. Magicians is sleight of hand. But if you actually knew someone that could do real deal magic, that's considered enormous evil. It doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It 100% exists. Absolutely exists. There's stories in the Talmud of the time when a great sage killed out like 80 witches. They were real witches and they had real power. It was all evil. There's never been a time that we've ever viewed that as coming from a good source. It's obviously a biblical story. It's in the prophets of King Saul wanting to speak to Samuel. and went to someone who could raise up the dead, completely forbidden, completely evil. But could she really do it? Yes, she could. So again, true magic exists, though we probably will never find someone that knows how to do it. But in this world, I'm sure there are people that do, and it's completely evil. True astrology exists. You might never know someone that has real astrological abilities, but true astrology exists. Now, not that an astrologer impacts the stars. When I say ability, it's an ability to read the stars. An astrologer doesn't impact the stars, but a true astrologer can read the stars. And I'm saying, I don't think that is per se evil, but definitely seeking it out, that knowledge would be viewed as evil. I hope that clearly answered the question. Becca.
Well, I guess the disagreement that I had with my friend is, so all I was saying is that the time of the year that you're born, it can have a little bit of an influence on your nature, the kind of person,
Absolutely does.
your personality. And she just went totally off the charts, fearful. It's like, oh no, we're not allowed to do that in any way, shape, or form. And and so I was just like, okay, well, we're just not going to talk about this anymore. And it's like, oh no, we're talking about this, and it is strictly forbidden, and you can't do it, and it brings evil.
So what I'm saying is,
yeah,
you're 100% right. When you're born, 100% impacts you. At the same time, I don't think that it impacts you in the way, if you read in the newspaper or the magazine how it impacts you because I don't think they know anything.
Right.
Does it impact you? Yes. The common literature you're going to find about it, are they correct? I am assuming they don't know anything they're talking about. If you know what you're talking about, you wouldn't be writing for the magazines and newspapers about it. Are we allowed to search out that information to help us identify ourselves? No. No, we don't look to the stars. We don't go to the stars. We don't seek that as a source of knowledge. Definitely, I could say in the Talmud, it discusses how each day of the week impacts the child. The month impacts the child. The date impacts the child. All of these things impact. Everything is incredibly precise. The day you're born has tremendous impact on your soul, and your soul is born on a certain day for that reason. That's the most appropriate day for this specific soul to come into the world. So of course the month has tremendous impact, but again, not that you're going to find out by reading magazines about it, and not that we're supposed to go and find it out. Does it? Yes. Can you look for that information? We don't.
Okay.
But again, all of that is viewed astrology again. So I said magic and I said astrology. So two very different things. Magic, whatever the forms of magic, witchcraft, black magic, whatever term you want to use for it, there are myriad disciplines in that. They are true disciplines. They are all evil. They are all forbidden. They're all coming from evil. None of them are coming from a good place or even a neutral place. They're all coming from a very, very evil place. There's nothing positive ever about any true magic. Astrology is not magic. Astrology is, if you will, the science of being able to read what the stars are saying. The stars are not creating the future. The stars are merely broadcasting. So that's not evil. It's not the same evil as magic, which is pulling on negative forces to do things. Astrology is not pulling on negative forces. Astrology is not trying to do anything. Astrology is merely trying to understand what the stars are saying and then try to use that information if they can. That's the only thing astrology is doing. So it is in a totally different category than magic, but still we don't go there. We don't go there. We turn to God. I don't need to know any of this stuff. I trust God, and I trust God, and I trust God. And if I have to work on myself, I trust God a bunch more times. That's what I need to know, and that's it. Any other questions on this topic? Okay.
So I guess the next, sorry.
Sure, Natalie.
My next question would be, raising kids in a world where Harry Potter is very popular, do we let the kids read Harry Potter and explain as a way to like facilitate this conversation, or do we try to shield them from that, which is nearly impossible? What's your thoughts?
I I would try to shield my child for as long as possible. And when they're old enough, I would talk to them about it. Meaning, why would I want to shield my child from Harry Potter, which is a very innocuous, I mean, I've never read them, but from the little I've seen of them, I'm sure very, very innocuous compared to a lot else out there in the world. The problem is anything we read or see or hear, it gets into our psyche and it affects the way we think. So if Harry Potter, whatever, there's these 5 volumes that have an enormous impact on the world. They must be very well written, very powerful. What your child will walk away from there is this very powerful vision that there's this power. And obviously, I think in the book it's portrayed that there's some, you can do good or bad with the power. And that's a very wrong vision because there's no good in that power. The good guys, that's all the falseness of that book. There's no good guys with this power. This power is only evil. It's only facilitating evil. There's nothing good. So my concern, if a child read those novels when they're like, I don't know how old you are when you read Harry Potter, 10, 11, 12, 13, when they would read them at such a formative age, is that in their heads would creep in an idea that's contrary to God's vision of the world. Once it creeps in, it's harder to get it out. So it's easier to not take that out of the library, not watch those movies. I'm sure the book has much more power than a movie, but still. And then when they're old enough, you could dialogue about it and bring it up as an example of how the world seemingly gives us innocent messages, but there's nothing innocent. Everything is loaded. Everything is loaded. Everything has a power. Everything has a vision. I would, at a certain point, read books, skim through books for high school to approve them if they could be read by the girls. And of course, generally when you're skimming through books, you want to see if there's anything inappropriate in terms of male-female relationships, language, that type of concept. So I remember once a teacher gave me a book and she was so excited. I guess it's some like classical novel, a modern classical novel that she wanted the girls to read. And she was so excited because there was nothing inappropriate. It was like, as we'd say, the cleanest of the clean, no bad language, nothing bad male, female, like perfectly clean book. Innocent. So she gave it to me. So I looked at it in a few places and then I looked at it more and I looked at it more because I didn't want to say something off the cuff. And I said to her, and it was sort of hard for me to explain this to her, but I said, I know it's going to be a little hard for you to understand, but this book actually is antithetical to our value system. There's nothing in it that's forbidden. I mean, there's no bad language or anything like that. But the whole theme of the book, I remember very clearly, I don't remember the author, but the whole theme of the book was the significance of I. The I. It was an aggrandizement of the I. And I said, in Jewish thought, our whole service of God is nullification. We're working on nullifying our I. We're working on putting our I on the side. Of course, the most natural human movement is the I. And we're working on putting that on the side to nullify ourselves and have space for God. So the theme of this book is far more dangerous than a book with some bad words or something like that. I don't know if she was like so happy, but okay. What I thought was very interesting was fast forward a few years, that was like a novel that the whole class was going to read. This was a different project in language, and the teacher was having every girl write a book report. And so I had to look at every book. And I looked at a certain book. And it was very interesting to me because it was the same theme. And I looked, it was the same author. Totally different book. The first book was this thin book, and it was like a fantasy novel with this theme. And this one was set in current reality. It was like a modern piece of fiction, but it was the exact same theme. And it was like a thick book with a lot of other stuff going on. It was like a very current modern novel as versus the other one, but it was the exact same theme. It was the same author. Obviously, this is the theme the author wants to convey. And I said, no, she couldn't read the book. I'm sure she read the book before she showed it to me, but whatever. I said she couldn't because I said, again, the problem is the theme. So why was I so concerned? Because again, I'm sure kids nowadays read and see and are exposed to far, far more than we'd ever want, and far worse than anything I'm saying here. But still, anything we can control, we would like to control. And of course, we understand that most of what they're exposed to, we won't be able to control. But if we can control, a theme like that is very insidious. It gets into your brain and you start looking at the world a certain way. So any of these, like you're saying, Harry Potter is a certain theme. Well, everyone knows magic isn't real, but it's a certain perspective on it. And that perspective is not God's perspective. So similarly, this aggrandizement of the I theme, it's a book, it's a novel, it's science fiction, science fantasy, it's fiction. Fiction's not true. Fiction's not true, but the themes, the thoughts get in your brain. And if you start looking around the world through that like prism of the significance of I, that's exactly contrary to our goal in serving God, which is to do the very hard work of putting that I on the side to let God shine through us. So whatever you can control in general, it's good to control. And a person might think, why should I bother once my kid gets to age X, Y, or Z? Each child is a different age, but I mean, inevitably at a certain point, you're not going to be controlling them anymore, which of course is true. But the hope is that the stronger their roots are, the better the whole tree will be. Meaning whatever happens when they're very young is tremendously impactful. It goes very deep into them. So we say if there's roots and there's a little nick in the root, it warps the whole tree. The whole tree is messed up. But if you have these, strong roots and strong branches, and then in one of the branches there's a nick, well, it's a nick in a branch. It's okay. The tree's going to survive. But if it's a nick in a root, it's a much bigger question. So the younger the child is, the more we're in the stage of the roots. We want those roots to be very strong, very, 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 very secure. So that's like your children, and the younger they are, the more it's the development of the roots. And as they get older, you'll have less control. But the stronger the roots are, the more hope you have, plus of course prayers and charity and psalms all help, that their roots will be good enough and strong enough. And yeah, they might end up reading Harry Potter or anything like that, but it's not going to really affect them because they'll be so strong in their foundational relationship with God and awareness of the world. Any other questions on this?
That's an amazing metaphor, because we actually do have a tree in our backyard that is now quite large. It's got a swing on it and everything. It's huge. It's bigger than the house. But obviously it was not well cared for in the beginning, because it's got to come out, because like you said, the trunk is so well set up to rot from the inside and it's going to fall down. And if it had been cared for when it was small, so it's a perfect metaphor. We have that exact tree in our yard.
Okay, good. So every time you ask yourself, why am I going crazy? Just look at the tree. God sent the tree there for a reason. And you say, that's why. That's why. That's why. And definitely for myself, obviously the younger you are, also the more controls you have over your child. But when my children were young, I did whatever I could to give them the most pure, rarefied, holy environment in terms of what they ate, in terms of what they were exposed to, in terms of everything, knowing that there's a world out there and they're definitely going to be aware of it, but definitely wanting to give them the strongest roots so they will be able to contend with the world. Nowadays, I've been in education for many years. So if I go back to when I first started, which was, about 35 some years ago, even more, in those days, I'd say if a child wanted to mess up, they'd have to proactively go out and do something. So you need more effort or more desire. Nowadays, you don't have to do anything, all the evils of the world, fit in the palm of your hand, which means that our education has to be very inward bound. We have to really get these children on board to really believe in the same vision we believe, so that they'll be able to contend with everything they're going to be faced. And we have no clue what our children will have to deal with, But what we can be guaranteed with is they're going to have to deal with a lot. That's for sure. We don't know what the world's going to look like in 5 years or in 10 years or in 20 years. But of course, our belief is that the redemption is going to come. Mashiach's going to come and we won't have to deal with any garbage. But if for some reason the Mashiach doesn't come and is completely revealed before then, you know for sure there's going to be so much your child will have to contend with that you can't even know and imagine. And therefore, we want a very inner education of our children, which both means tremendously protecting them and also a lot of conversations, a lot of feeling joy in your relationship to God, a lot of expressing the joy of your relationship to God, and a lot of sharing that. And the more you feel it, which of course you all do because you wouldn't be doing this otherwise, and express it, like to yourself when they're around. Oh, I'm so happy to have this, whatever. So grateful to have these rules that give you such clear direction on how to connect to God. So grateful to have a way of talking to God. So grateful to have such a simple act like charity that I know creates so much goodness in the world, whatever. Like just say lines like that all day long. True lines you believe in, but they're all true. And talk to your child. Talk to your child about your journey. Talk to your child about your choices. Talk to your child about when you made the choices you did. Talk to your child about the inner peace and the anchor and the guidance and the security and serenity you have, and transcending the limitations of this world and accessing something so much higher and greater, and all those things you feel and know. Talk and talk and talk to your child. And if your child's not listening, talk to someone else when your child's around. They'll hear what you're saying, especially if you're not talking to them. And that's just all like saturating their environment with this. So like it gets inside, it gets inside, it gets inside, and then it becomes them. And they might still go through their struggles, obviously, humans do. But if that's their core value system, most people, most of the time, come back to their core value system. When it's true, when it's authentic. Again, if words come from the heart and they're true, they penetrate the other person's heart. So definitely what you're saying is true, and definitely it's going to be coming from your heart. It will penetrate the heart of your child, and you just want to say it and say it and say it and say it. So that reservoir inside the child becomes very, very, very strong. And then whatever they have to contend with, they'll have the strength with God's help to make the right choices. Anyone else? Any other questions on this?
No, but thank you so much for taking time to answer that question and discuss it.
Absolutely. I always appreciate getting questions. I always want to talk about what people want to ask. All right. So we are going to do Ethics of the Fathers, chapter 6. So we're going to start with the 5th statement, again, in Ethics of the Fathers, which is called Mishna, as we discussed that term. This was the most cryptic writing down of the oral law, called Mishna, as we once went through the whole thing for, I think, at least 2 classes. So you became very well knowledgeable. All right, so this is the first Mishna, the 5th statement in chapter 6. Do not seek greatness for yourself, and do not covet honor. Let your deeds exceed your learning. Do not yearn for the table of kings, for your table is greater than theirs, and your crown is greater than theirs. And your employer, capital E, God, is trustworthy to pay you the total, complete, what he owes you, fancy English, remuneration, paying you exactly what is owed for all your deeds. So again, in this statement, there's a lot of very practical applications. So it starts by talking about honor. Don't seek greatness, don't covet honor. So that's really a very human struggle, which you might or might not have, like many other struggles. Some people battle their whole life with anger, and some people, it's a non-issue. Some people battle the whole life with jealousy, and for some people it's a non-issue. So some people battle their whole life with honor, with ego, with wanting more appreciation. It's very normal. Most people struggle with it, and some people don't at all. Don't worry. Everyone struggles with something. You could say, yes, I know all about struggling with anger, and honor never bothered me at all. I know all about struggling with jealousy, and anger never bothered me at all. I know all about struggling with lack of self-worth, and jealousy never bothered me at all. I mean, and somebody could say, yes, I struggle with anger and jealousy and honor and lack of self-worth and gossip and everything you just mentioned. You know, we all have the struggles combined of what our soul needs to accomplish, what's the trajectory, what's the journey our soul has to do, why it's in this world, what unfinished business we have. So, you know, based on a lot of factors, that's our struggles. But here we're focusing on honor, and honor is a very human struggle, which again, when I was thinking about it in terms of the class and ourselves, I thought probably for most of us, the way it would play out would be appreciation. We don't view appreciation as honor, but it's one of the colors and flavors. So do you find honor or appreciation something you struggle with, wanting it, not getting it, needing it? Does that resonate? Is that something you struggle with? And again, you don't have to, because I have no fear, even if you don't struggle with it. I know you struggle with something. We all do. And most of us struggle with multiple somethings. But if you do relate to this, just raise your virtual hand. So me and Becca, just a little bit, nobody else. Okay, well then it's really not a big topic of discussion if it's not really an issue. Amazing. Then the Mishnah went on to say, let your deeds exceed your learning. Make sure however much you learn, you're always doing far more, which probably is very natural for us. And do not yearn for the table of kings. Your table is greater than theirs. Your crown is greater than theirs. No God will pay you back for everything. Don't yearn for the table of kings. Don't yearn for luxuries. How do you deal with this? Corey?
Oh, sorry, I was coming a little late to the raising hand for appreciation.
Oh, you were on my thing. You also sometimes struggle with wanting appreciation and not getting it.
For sure.
For sure. Okay, good. I thought it was just me and a little bit of Becca. No problem. Yeah. All right. Well, let's go to this, then we might go back. Okay, so now we're talking about wanting things that you don't have, right? So the sages are saying, don't yearn for all these luxuries, because your table is more beautiful. Your crown is more beautiful. So is this something people are feeling also, that they work again? And again, if you don't have either of these issues, I'm not worried. I know we all got plenty of issues. Myself, definitely. But is this something that you've been working on, or that you should work on, or that you need to work on? Becca said a little. Anyone else feeling yes, it's something that they struggle with, or I'll maybe do a thumbs up if you do struggle with it, and a thumbs down if you don't, because then I'll make sure that all of us are like, oh, there is no thumbs down, is there? Let's see.
I'm sorry, I'm late. What are you asking?
Hi, Dixie. We were reading the Mishnah, and we were talking about desiring what you don't have, and the sages are saying, don't look at the king's table and say, wow, meaning I'd like to have those luxuries that I don't have. So my question was how do we deal with this need But before I want to discuss dealing with the need, I want to know if people have the need. So there's something to talk about. It's an appropriate conversation with this group. So what I'm asking now is, who relates to this challenge? Who feels, yes, that they have worked on themselves, or they need to work on themselves, or they are working on themselves in this area? And okay.
I don't want anything like that.
You don't
So
want anything
I'm
like that. Not your issue. Okay. So
no.
it's not Dixie's issue. It's a little bit of Becca's issue. Corey's hand might be raised from the previous question. Anyone else?
Oh, definitely me.
Natalie?
Oh, for sure.
For sure. Okay. Becca, you are not alone. Jenny said yes. All right. Okay. And I don't know if Corey's hand was for this one or for the previous one. I know it was for the previous one. Corey, are you also on board with this one, or this is not your problem?
Yeah, not for material things necessarily. It's more of people's characteristics, or their, how they are. I don't know how to
That could be part or could not be part, depending on how we handle it. But that's an interesting perspective. It's not like you're looking for their granite countertops, but maybe you like someone's confidence or comfort in communicating with people, and be like, oh, I wish I had that, which could be, it's not luxuries, but it is still looking outward and feeling like I'd like to have that thing that I don't have. So that's a good point. So it could be something much more subtle than I wish that my car functioned better or something like that. And Dixie said, not at all. I'm not looking for anything. So for those people that did relate to it, which we got at least 3 yeses here, I'm not counting Corey because that was a different issue though. How do you deal with it? How do you take that idea? So what the sages are saying, this is the sages' response to that issue. Don't yearn for it because your table is greater than theirs. Your crown is greater than theirs. What message are the sages giving us as like the way to handle this desire for things you don't have? They're giving a very specific antidote. What's the antidote? What are they saying? How should you respond when you have that negative feeling inside of you? What should you tell yourself? A very simple, powerful message. What are they telling you to tell yourself?
Would it be that you already have everything that you need?
I'm far wealthier. I'm far wealthier. That's the answer. That's what the sages are saying. So again, playing this out, each person has to play it out in her own area, but make it very simple. Like if you would feel like, oh, my friend gets to go on a vacation, or my friend has help whenever she wants to clean or babysitting, or my friend's car doesn't break down or isn't a eyesore, and you say, I'm far wealthier. All this Facebook, social media falseness, I'm far wealthier. I'm far wealthier. Your table is far more beautiful. Your crown is far more beautiful. So as a Noahide, which there's so few, of course, nowadays it seems like, whoa, so many Noahides. But of course, when we consider the population of man at about 8 billion, every single one of you should feel, wow, I have no clue in what merit. What did I do to deserve this? Who am I? What am I? That God chose me, that God chose my soul to know him and to know how to connect to him, to know how to be with him. So I am so rich. I am so wealthy. I have more of everything than almost anyone on this planet. I am so blessed. And I have no clue in what merit, but I am so blessed. So if you look around your very simple table, you know, or your very simple car, your very simple closet, and, you know, just to really keep resonating that message. So what Jenny wrote, the more you come up with that negativity inside, the more you have to think constantly, I am so wealthy. I am so rich. I remember quite a number of years ago, I had a friend come by once. It was a Sunday, I'm sure. It was a Sunday in the summer, you know, double dose. And it was quite a number of years ago. So I was, you know, she's moved away for 20 years. So, you know, it was a time when I probably had like, I don't know, many children at home. And the house was like a topsy-turvy disaster. Like, and I do mean that literally, I'm not exaggerating. And she walked in and just kids everywhere, mess everywhere. And she looked at it all and she looked at me and she said, wow, you are so wealthy. And I think she said that. Maybe she said, wow, you are so blessed. I don't remember which one it was. I don't remember. Like I said, about 20 years ago. But I looked at her and I thought, wow, she's so right. Because my friend was never married, no children, never married. And I was like, I am so wealthy. I am so blessed. I have a complete mess and I should be, you know, on the floor embarrassed that someone else sees this absolute disaster. But she got it. It was all expressing how absolutely wealthy I am. And I was just in that space of feeling, wow, she's right. I am so wealthy. So your table is more beautiful. Your crown is more beautiful. That doesn't mean you have to have a mess in your house. But whatever you have, you should know you have the real deal wealth. You have the, not just in a spiritual sense, because as you're serving God, that works on planet Earth in a very physical sense. Every single command you do is designed to give you the best human life possible. The best life as a person, as a human being. Of course, Jews have a lot more laws, but of course, Noahides have quite a number. And every time you're following God's will, this is giving you the best life possible. So no, you are so wealthy. So there's two dimensions. One dimension is like wanting things you don't have. And this is the antidote. I am so wealthy. I am so blessed. I am so saturated. And Corey raised like a different nuance to this, which is not wanting somebody else's things, but what if you want just like aspects of it? Let's say you look at someone else, you say, again, I don't know specifically what Corey was talking about, so I just made up examples. You say, I wish I had her confidence. I wish I had her energy level. I wish I had her pain tolerance. I wish I had her stamina. I wish I had her vivacious nature, you know, whatever. Again, I don't know if those were exactly any of the things Corey was thinking about, but I think that's what she meant, things along those lines. It's not things. I'm not looking for her car. I'm not looking for her coat. I'm not looking for her wallet. I'm not looking for her credit card. But I wish I had those pieces to my personality. I wish I had those strengths. So I would say that actually sort of we're going to respond to in the next Mishna we're going to talk about, which I see now we actually don't have too much time left. So I maybe should use this as a segue to the last one. But just to answer that, and then we'll talk about that next Mishna, which is really that point. God is very precise. Everything you need to have, you came into this world with or with the tools to acquire it. And what you don't have, you don't need, or you haven't used those tools. So if you look at someone else and say, wow, I wish I had her confidence. I wish I had her take chargeness. I wish I had her social graces, whatever. Maybe you don't have it because it's not meant for you to have, you don't need it. Or maybe you actually do have the potential, you have never worked on it. Well, let's just make it simple and say you don't have it and it's not in your potential. And guess what? You don't need it. Not for you, not necessary, not needed for your life, not needed for your success, not needed for what your soul is in this world to do. There's countless things I can't do. And I'm like, okay, if I can't do them, not necessary. And if it comes needed, I will be able to do them. And some things, of course, have changed over the years as I've been put in situations where I've had to draw on strengths I didn't know I had, and then change. I would say, if I could go back that many years, when I was growing up, I would have considered myself more, quiet, or not so, outgoing, whatever. But then many years ago, I was put in a position, which I was in for many, many, many years, that sort of required that skill set. So lo and behold, I found it. I just sort of did it because I had no choice. And the more you do it, the more natural it becomes. So if you look at someone else and you say, wow, I wish I had her stamina, well, maybe you do have the potential for it. But if you say, no, I absolutely don't, then you don't need her stamina. I remember very clearly my secretary that worked very closely with me, and she said, oh, I want to be just like you, meaning me, and like work late all night and then wake up the next morning. She said she tried for like 2 days and she got sick. So guess what? It's not for her. She doesn't have it. She doesn't need it. Not necessary for her life. Not given to her, and therefore not necessary. But again, it's possible many things are given to her that she's not accessing. But if you absolutely don't have it in you, you don't have to worry. It's not yours. And it's nice to think, wow, it's so nice that so-and-so could be more whatever this, and so-and-so could be more that, and I'm neither of those things. And that's nice that they can do those things that I can't do. And that sort of like compliments me, because all of us are in this together. It's like we're all in this world together. So it's good that there are learners, and it's good that there are doers, and it's good that there are extroverts, and it's good that there are introverts, and it's good that there are people more assertive, and it's good that there are people less assertive. It all together creates a beautiful world, God's beautiful garden. So when you look at people and say, wow, I could never do that. Actually, I don't even know if I ever want to do that, but I could never do that. Guess what? Because it's not needed for you to do, and it's not part of your composition, and it doesn't need to be your composition. But you can appreciate it in someone else and say, wow, it's really cool. I'm not at all artistic at all. But I could look at someone artistic and say, wow, that's so beautiful. And it gives you so much pleasure, and it's such a beautiful gift. It's not my gift. I'm not looking for the gift. I don't need the gift. I don't have the gift. But I can appreciate it someone else does. So when you're looking at other people having qualities you don't have, if you truly don't have those qualities and truly don't have the ability to create those qualities, you probably don't need those qualities. And that's why God didn't waste them by giving them to you, because he's not going to waste things. But if you need them, you have them. And if you don't have them, you don't need them. And you can appreciate them in other people and say, wow, it's so nice God gave you those gifts. And you're very comfortable in the gifts God gave you. So that's a complete natural segue. And I'm sorry it's so late, to the next Mishna we're going to do, which is actually the last Mishna in this whole chapter, Mishna 11, which says, very important Mishna, the conclusion of this chapter, the conclusion of the entire ethics of the fathers. All that the Holy One, blessed be he, created in his world, he created solely for his glory. As is stated, all that is called by my name, indeed, is for my glory that I've created it, formed it, and made it. And it says, the Lord shall reign forever and ever. So that is a very powerful ending, which is exactly, in a sense, what Corey was talking about. What is this telling us? Nothing is a waste. God deliberately creates everything. If you have it, it's for a reason. If you don't have it, it's for a reason. The reason being, you don't need it. It wouldn't be for you a positive. It would be for you a handicap. But conversely, if you have something, it's a reason. Because nothing is random. Everything is very deliberately created by God. So if God gave you a talent, an ability, and you are not using it, you are wasting. If God made you very organized, very competent in stress, a great cook, a wonderful people person, lots of stamina, and then you're not using those gifts, or just in sort of a minor little way, it's like you're wasting. God invested in you something very precious, And he gave it to you for a reason. And the reason is for his honor, for his glory, to use it to serve him. So every one of us have to ask ourselves that question: how can I use my gifts for God? That is this final, very powerful message. This is the final message of the entire Ethics of the Fathers of this chapter, which is the final chapter of Ethics of the Fathers. So the entire Ethics of the Fathers: how can I use my gifts for God? So that's really something we all have to ask ourselves. If you could say, what gifts? That means you're really not cued in. All right? Maybe ask someone else who knows you well, like a friend, a safe friend. How can I use my gifts for God? Whatever your gifts are, we all have gifts, and we have gifts of the line Corey was thinking of. Not gifts of things. Of course, sometimes we have things in our life, and those things we can use for God. And if God gave us a larger house or a beautiful house or more financial resources, a bigger backyard, obviously those things you also use for God. But a lot of it is ourselves. God poured into each one of us treasures of self, which I do believe was what Corey was referring to in her question or statement. We all have those treasures. Some of you have more, some of you have less, but we all have them. Every single one of us is God's treasure. Every single one of us has very unique, precious qualities, and perhaps so unique that no one else in the world even has them, because no two people are the same. Every one of us is very, very unique. So your strengths, maybe no one else, and you can say, nah, I'm sure there's lots of people like me. Well, maybe in the same ballpark, but exactly your strengths, God gave them to you. And why did God do that? So you can serve him with them. That's the exact reason why. So everything you have to first recognize what you have. And then you have to ask yourself, am I using this for God? Am I serving God with this gift? Am I at all using this gift? And if you say, no, I'm not using it at all, well, then you're making God waste, because he's creating and you're not using it. It's like you're putting in the garbage this gift. So that's a big waste. You could say, no, I'm using it all the time, but I mean, it's with God. Well, that's sort of not fair. And he doesn't mind you using it for yourself as well, but he gave it for you to use it to serve him. So there's 3 steps here: recognizing your strengths, your gifts, your treasures, questioning if you use them or put them in the closet, and then asking yourself, am I using it for God? And if I'm not, how can I use this for God? You don't have to become world famous with it. Each one of us, it's the road of our soul. It's our mission in this world. If we turn over ourselves, if we turn over our families, if we help our friends, communities, that's could be bringing God his glory. But what is my gift? Am I using it? And am I using it for God? Because if I have a gift and I'm not using it at all, that's wasted. That's not fair to God. He's creating this gift and I'm not using it. What a waste. That's so not fair. But if I'm using it but not for him, that's also not fair. Because he wants us to use it to add to his glory. Anyone would like to share? I know we're late, so we can't really spend too long on this, but anyone has any example of where they take a gift they have and use it for God? Even like a little example?
Well, I don't know. I try and do everything for God. And with all my gifts, I work hard and I work for God. I thank him all the time that I can work hard. I thank him that he's given me the desire to work hard. And I thank him that he's given me the abilities, and every ability he's given me is from him and him alone. And so I try to give everything back to him in everything I do.
Beautiful. That's so beautiful. That's so beautiful. So Dixie was sort of generalizing everything, but also being very specific in a very specific gift, which is being able to work really hard. And taking that gift of really working hard and working really hard for God. And that's a gift. And she said, God, you gave it to me for you. So I'm using it for you. I'm also, so to speak, using it for me. And I'm also using it for you. That was really beautiful. Anyone else want to share along those lines of a gift that they are using for God? Becca?
I generally just like to encourage people to kind of boost them up, boost their spirits, boost up their self-esteem, you know, and just and about something that I truly feel like they did good in. It's like, no, don't underrate that. You really did good and you're really good at this, and then, you know, it boosts their mood and their morale, and that's what I like to do.
Beautiful. So that's a very specific gift. Becca's saying a gift of encouraging others, which is definitely a gift from God. And if she's using it to encourage others, for sure she's using it for God, because she's spreading to her friends, to her family, this positive, optimistic viewpoint, this positive energy, this higher perspective. So that's a beautiful way of saying this is a gift, not mine. I didn't create it. God gave it to me. I'm using it for him. Really nice. Really nice. Anyone else want to share before we end on this point?
I'll jump in before we get off. I think a gift that I have is the ability to take in new information and to use it to change aspects of my life. I mean, just on this one like class, it's like I've thrown away 2 books, you know, just straight to the trash, you know. It is, you know.
Natalie, that was your question. You're the one that started her. Christelle's going to go give you a bill.
Oh, I'm thinking about books in our boxes too.
Yeah, and it's just that I'm very thankful for that, you know, and it's like, and then I'll have a conversation with anybody that I've shared any of those books with, and you know, and tell them like, hey, this is why, you know, that's a no.
I threw it out. Yeah. After I shared it with you, but guess what?
I know. But thank you. Yeah. And thank you, Nat. Great question. I'm glad you asked.
It was that's a beautiful gift. That's a beautiful gift to be able to absorb and apply information. That's a very big gift from God. Very big gift. That's a huge gift. It really is. And I have to say, it's not such a common gift. Some people, of course, can't absorb. Some people can't apply. But to absorb and apply, whoa, that's a very high level gift God gave you. And you're saying I'm using it for God because I'm absorbing godly information, and then hey, I apply it, so I change. So there's books in the garbage right now, you know, thanks to this class. So that's a really special gift, and that's a really special way of saying, God, thank you. I liked what Dixie said very much. Everything is God. Everything we are is God. All of our lives are God, and He gave it all, and we just want to give it all back to Him. Dusty with our work, you know, a little sweaty with our efforts, a little enhanced by our fingerprints. That's really, really, really the journey of every one of us. So it's really beautiful. And again, sometimes it's hard for people to say my gifts. So it's good to talk to like a friend who might be able to point out things that you never even realized. You just, oh, is everyone like that? Well, that's not such a big deal. You know, we do these things very self-deprecating comments. So no, everyone's not like that. And yes, it is a big deal. And then make sure that you're using it and you're using it for God. Again, it doesn't mean you can't use it for yourself as well in other ways. Maybe Christelle's also, you know, Googles and then does home repairs or fix her own car. You know, like that's also great. No issues. That's beautiful. You know? But make sure you're giving it to God, because that's why you have it. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming to this class.
Thank you.
Look forward for all of us working a little harder this week and really being appreciative of the gift of having God in our lives.
Shavuot tov.
Amen.
So, Shavuot tov.
Thank you.